Howdy and welcome to episode 75 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen and today is Thursday, May 2nd, 2019. And I want to say a quick happy birthday to Elissa. So I have some fun things to talk about today. I got to see Hamilton, so I'm going to tell you all about that. I also got to review a new game called Knitting the Card Game. I got a demo copy to borrow. So I got to play it a few times and I recorded a review of it. So that will also be in this episode. And then I have Roundtable Yarn stuff. So lots to talk about. We'll go ahead and jump in. So if you've watched the podcast, then you might know, I think it was a little over 2 years ago, I decided to give Hamilton a try listening to it. Even though I had heard wonderful things about it, I didn't really give it a try because I thought it's not really the type of music that I listen to. It's a musical, which I love, but not really big into hip hop, so I don't think that I would like it. And then I listened to it and fell in love with it, and I've been a little obsessed, you might say. Luna is playing with Wally, so you heard that bark there. She's trying to get him. I think what she wants to do is have him chase her. And he doesn't want to do that. Anyway, so I've been a little obsessed, and I was very excited when it was announced that it was coming to Dallas. And I've been looking forward to seeing it since I fell in love with it, and then when I knew that, hey, it's actually coming nearby, so I finally got to see it. And so here is the playbill, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. If you haven't seen it, if you ever are able to have a chance to, please go see it. It is truly an amazing theatrical experience. I know tickets can be hard to get and tickets can be expensive. I've been trying to share this because I realize that not a lot of people know about this, but there is a lottery for each performance where 48 hours, 2 days before each show, they open it up. And you enter, so you can enter once per show. And if your name is picked during the lottery, then you get to buy a ticket for $10. It's called Ham for Ham, since Hamilton is on the $10 bill. So I know not very many people apparently know about that because I've been trying to share that information, and I've had a lot of people say, oh, I didn't know. Thank you for mentioning this. So I wanted to mention that. So if you go to hamiltonmusical.com, I believe it's the website, /lottery, that is where you can see which shows are available for the lottery. Like I said, it's 2 days in advance of that performance. And while we were at DFW Fiberfest, I actually, someone came by my booth and mentioned that she had been chosen for the lottery for that weekend. So she was really thrilled about that. So if you aren't able to actually get tickets, or if you aren't able to afford tickets, that is a way of, not guaranteed, but a way of possibly getting tickets. So do that. Okay, so thoughts on the show. I was blown away by the performance. It was truly, people say that it's an amazing show, and words really can't do justice to it. It really, truly is incredible. So I thought what I would share with you guys is a little bit about some of the specific actors that I saw and how I felt that what they brought to the roles. And then there were particular moments, visual moments, that I thought were really quite incredible that I wanted to share. So that's what I'm gonna kind of talk about. So at the performance, I always spend the beginning of a performance before the show starts reading through the playbill. I like to take a look at the cast, and then I love reading little bios of the cast members to see more information about them. And for this one, there was a little slip in it that said, these are the actors for this performance. And I actually saw, I think the only changes were in the smaller parts. So all of the main roles were the cast members for this tour. All of them were good. I thought that they all did their parts justice, but just a few standout performers I want to mention. I want to, I'm holding this so I can actually name the actors. So Aaron Burr was played by Nick Walker, and he brought a sense to Burr of the kind of an arrogance that Burr had, which both Burr and Hamilton had a sense of arrogance, but they were kind of different types. So he brought that to the character. But what I think that he really was able to portray well was the buildup of the frustration level that Burr is experiencing every time that he thinks he's going to potentially get ahead, to be in the room where it happens, which is his thing that he wants. Every time he thinks that's going to happen, Hamilton gets in the way and frustrates that. And Burr just, the actor just really developed that frustration as the show went, and I felt that he did a really, really excellent job in that. And just the interplay between Hamilton and Burr throughout was really well done. There are several parts that are dual roles that the same actor plays a different person in Act 1 and versus Act 2. So Kyle Scatliff, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name for sure. He did the dual role of the Marquis de Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. He was good as Lafayette, but he was phenomenal as Jefferson. Wow. He was a very, very tall guy, and I think that just helped his presence on the stage, but he was also just extremely dynamic. His facial expressions, his tone of voice, he really made Jefferson another perfect adversary for Hamilton, and just really brought that character to life. So like I said, he did good as Lafayette, but excelled at Jefferson. I thought all of the Schuyler sisters did a good job. But unexpectedly, again, this is a dual role, so it's a woman who plays Peggy, the third Schuyler sister that doesn't really have a big part. And then in the second act, she plays Mariah Reynolds, who is a woman that Hamilton has an affair with. And there's a song in that second act called Say No to This. And I have to admit that it is probably my least favorite song in the entire musical. And a lot of times when I'm listening to the recording, I skip over that song. I don't know why, it just has never really completely appealed to me. Some of it may be the subject matter. I mean, it's a song where Hamilton is, deciding to have this affair. But the actress, so let me look at her name, Nyla Soster. When she was Mariah, that song was just absolutely, I would not skip over that song, her performance. I think my jaw probably dropped a little bit just how good she was and how good that song was. Maybe it's a song that needs the visuals to go with it to really make it work, but her voice was just absolutely incredible and perfect for that role, and made me kind of reevaluate that song. And think that maybe it's not my least favorite, or not an awful song to skip over. She was just incredible. And then King George, so John Patrick Walker is the actor who played him. So much fun. I mean, it's a role that really allows the actor to kind of ham things up a bit, and he definitely did that. And I really, really enjoyed his role. Everyone, like I said, everyone else was really good, and I really enjoyed their performances, but those are the ones that I felt were kind of the standout, worthy of extra mention performances that I really greatly enjoyed. So, as far as the staging, the set itself stays the same throughout. So it's basically it looks like a lot of wood and brick type of setup, where it has a balcony. So you've got kind of a second level, and then you've got the main level, and then the stage has a part on the stage that turns. So they're able to rotate. And there are some staircases that come down from the second level to the first, and that setup stays the same from the very beginning to the very end. There's one part at the end of the first act, and then the beginning of the second act, that one of the staircases moves and then moves back. But other than that, that staging stays the same, and they just bring in props, and then the ensemble, the cast members, basically also in some ways serve as props at times too, to change up the scenes. And that was really effective because it was able to make your focus more on the people, because the choreography was really, really awesome. So you didn't have, you weren't really focused on the set design, besides just the, kind of some thoughts that, wow, it's a fairly simple set design, but also very detailed in its simplicity. And it's able to convey so many different scenes that were happening. So that was really cool. And I also really liked the, basically the turntable on the stage. They were able to make really, really great use of that. So some of the details in the visuals is really what brought things to life, that really, really helped. That I think my favorite visual moment was during this song called Hurricane. And during that, some of the cast members, there's a desk and chairs and things going on, and they're picking them up and turning them upside down and moving them, and the way the lighting is, and I think, I can't remember for sure, I think the stage was very slowly rotating at that point. But just that movement of picking things up and turning it upside down and moving it, it looked like a hurricane in slow motion. Just really cool. They also did a similar thing in the song The World Turned Upside Down, but I think it was even more effective in Hurricane, just because of the lighting and because of kind of what it was representing. I mean, it really felt like you were watching a hurricane in slow motion. And I think that was a moment where I just sat there, just again with my mouth, open, just like, oh, that is so cool. So I loved that. Another little detail was in a song that Angelica sings. So it's kind of during the ballroom scene, and she's talking about meeting Hamilton for the first time. And so they had dropped some kind of lights down into the scene to kind of represent the, I guess, chandeliers, lights of the ballroom. And there's a line that she says that it's like Ben Franklin with the key and the kite. And at that moment, those lights go bright and then fade back to where they were. And just that kind of electricity and then backing off right when she says that line. Just a little detail that just, again, shows how much they are paying attention to details. Another favorite little detail moment is at the very end of the song Hurricane. This is a song where Hamilton is trying to decide what to do, because he's been accused of speculation, basically using his position as Secretary of the Treasury to financially help other people. He's been accused of that, but that's not what's going on. What's actually been going on is he's been paying the husband of the woman he's had an affair with so that he will stay quiet, and that's why he's been paying this man, not for the speculation purposes. So he's trying to make that clear, because in his mind, the political accusation is much worse, and that would ruin him, versus the personal accusation of having an affair. Admitting to the affair is much less going to take away from his position, from his legacy. So he's trying to decide what to do. And so ultimately what he does is he writes this thing called the Reynolds pamphlet, which explains the entire affair and obviously causes a huge ruckus in his personal life with his wife, but also is something that, because of just the level of detail and everything that he talks about, it actually does destroy his political pursuits as well in some ways. Anyway, so at the end of Hurricane, when he decides to sit down and write the Reynolds pamphlet, he goes to sit down at the desk, and you see somebody walking towards him with a pen and kind of hands him the pen over his shoulder, and he takes it. And it's the actress who played Mariah, the woman he had the affair with. And again, it's just those little details that really add up. But I think one more visual, one of just, again, what a great detail. 2 moments where one of the ensemble members basically acts as a prop, and she is acting as the bullet from a gun. So she actually has her fingers like this, and she's kind of moving her fingers and moving her body to represent a bullet. And so there are 2 main moments where that happens. The first is at the beginning of the song Stay Alive, where Hamilton has agreed to basically become Washington's writing his correspondence, and so he's sitting down kind of in the field of battle, and he's writing a letter, and you see a British soldier on one side of the stage with a gun, and that cast member comes with the bullet, and she's moves it across the stage, and it passes right over Hamilton's head. And so you just kind of, that gives you this sense of he's in harm's way. At any moment a stray bullet could have come and struck him. And I think that really just gives a sense of what it was like, at least a little bit. And then the other moment where that bullet comes across is in the duel between Hamilton and Burr. And so the guns go off basically, and then Hamilton kind of has this soliloquy moment where he kind of thinks about what's going to become of all the stuff that I've started. I'm not going to get to finish doing everything that I wanted to do. And then he sees all of the people who've gone on ahead of him to the other side who've already died. And then he thinks of Eliza. So all of that is happening kind of after the shot happens. And then, and so you get that, and then, basically they go back and have the shot again, and that's where you see that Hamilton has been mortally wounded. But during that whole time where he's having that soliloquy, again, the actress has got her fingers out, and she's acting as the bullet, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to Hamilton as he's talking. And there's one moment where he's moved to the center of the stage, and he actually kind of has to dodge that bullet to be able to continue on with his moment there. And that was just like, wow, that's just, again, the choreography was really, really neat. I could go on and on talking about it. This is the shirt section. So this is the tour t-shirt, Rise Up. And on the back is the list of all the cities and places that the tours went to. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. I'm so glad that I got to see it. If you are ever given the chance to see it, have the chance to see it, please take it. I think it was one of the best theater, and I have seen quite a few musicals. It was one of the best theater experiences I have ever had. So, yeah, please go see it if you can. So I have several things on the needles right now. My ever-present sock project. So this is First Sock, Mustache Colorway, Unicorn Apocalypse. I am on the foot, so that's just my travel project, easy to take to knitting groups and other types of things. So making progress on that sock. Then I think last time I showed you that I started a beaded lace shawl, Anna Victoria. I haven't gotten a lot more done on it since I showed it to you last time, but I have gotten a little bit more. So I will show you progress on that. So it is getting bigger. Yes, I'm showing you the right side. No, wait. Yes. So it is getting a little bit bigger, and hopefully you can see the pink beads in there. I love the pink beads on the gray. I haven't really picked this up much in the past few days, so I'm eager to get back to it. I think I'm getting to the point where each row is, obviously getting bigger and taking a little bit longer and a little bit longer. So I kind of feel like I have to have a bigger chunk of time to really pick that up, especially since it has the beads. I just need to make bigger chunks of time so I can do that. And then I have my other shawl project, which is technically my Q2 shawl, since it uses mini skeins. So this is Buccaneer, and the purple yarn. So I'll show you my progress. The purple yarn is Schmutzarella, which I got at DFW Fiber Fest. There's my little Deathly Hollows stitch marker, so I can so I can see which one is the right side of the work. Now that I've added in these, it's easier to tell, but when you're doing garter stitch, it can be difficult to tell, and so I like to have a little marker on the right side. I finished that first section with the ripples, the waves, and the mini skeins, and now I'm back to the main purple section. And so the mini skeins. That is from a set from Teeny Button, which I also got at DFW Fiber Fest. And the thing about that set is it only had 5 colors in it, and I needed 6 for this pattern. So what I had originally done was get a mini skein from the goodie bag from Into the Wool. We got several mini skeins in there. So I had originally pulled out one of those that I was going to use as my 6th color. But when I laid out my progression of colors, I got up to this last one here with the Teeny Button, and it's a very, very light color. It's a very, very light brown with some darker brown flecks in it. And when I looked at it just in the skein form, it looked a little bit darker than it was. But once I was knitting it ended up being much lighter. And the mini skein that I had pulled for the 6th mini skein was one that was also very, very light with only a little bit of some colors in it. And I decided that I really didn't like the 2 very, very light ones next to each other, especially as I was going to then move on to the dark purple. That just felt like it was going to be too much contrast, I guess. Too big of a section of contrast. So what I did is I went back to my leftovers, which were also Teeny Button from when I did the Adventurer cowl. I had used her Harry Potter set of minis then, and I found this one that had brown in it, and I thought, okay, so that will pull the brown from this, and then I think that will also look nice when I get to the dark purple. But I'd already used that mini on another project, so I didn't have much of it. In my head, I thought that it would be enough to do an entire ripple. It wasn't. I got about halfway through the ripple and I looked and I realized I don't even know if I have enough for one more row, much less the other half of this ripple. What do I do? So I dived back into those leftovers of the minis and I pulled this purple one out because I thought, it is going from brown to purple here, which doesn't really have a gradual kind of effect, color change. But hey, purple to purple would be a good color shift. So I added that in. That does mean that I don't have any left of either of these 2 colors to do on the next section, because there's another section of these waves. I have enough of all of the first 5, but I'm going to have to do something similar for the 6th mini, either pull out and do a split like I did here, pull out from the other leftovers, or find some other mini or some other leftover. I might look through my leftovers that I throw into my project for my leftover sock yarn blanket, which I have not worked on in ages, but I have a whole bunch of leftovers that I've thrown in that bag. So I may go through that and look to see if there's something that will work for the 6th color in the next stripe section. So that is kind of currently what my focus has been on. except for this project. This project that has been on the podcast a number of times in the past year plus. Not finished yet, but super close now. It's my boxy. So, it's big. I finished the body. I finished the neck, and the neck is in stockinette, so it rolls, so you can see the roll there. And then I finished one of the sleeves. So when you're doing the body, because of the way the sleeves are, this part is a big part of the sleeve already. So it just has kind of this section from here down for the sleeve. So I finished the first one, and all I have left to do is finish the second one. And that's really not that much work. The biggest work is picking up the stitches. And so I just need to do that and get the second sleeve. And then obviously you've got some ends you can see that need to be woven in. But I am actually almost done with this boxy, just in time for summer. I was a little bit concerned because, it's supposed to be an oversized sweater, but especially on the needles, it just looked so big. And now that it's off the needles, I was able to try it on, and you know what, guys? It actually fits really well. To be an oversized sweater, it fits me really well for that. So I'm really happy with the way it fits, and I'm looking forward to basically having this whenever I'm feeling a little bit cold, to be able to throw on as a comfy around the house sweater. That's really what I meant for it to be. So maybe I'll need it for air conditioning, but I'm excited to have that project be so much closer to the end. It really is, the project itself is not that difficult. It's just kind of a test of endurance. Can you do this much stockinette in the round forever and ever and ever, and then you split to do the front and the back, and so then you have to go back and forth. At some point I just got kind of tired of purling, and I decided, you know what, I need some practice with purling backwards. So instead of turning the work, you just you knit a row and then purl backwards and across a row, so you don't turn the whole thing around. So I practiced that for a while, got pretty good at that rhythm. Then that got a little bit tedious, and anyway, so this project's kind of a test of endurance, I think. And I don't think that I would make it again, because I don't know. I'm happy with what it's turning out as, but I don't know that I want to go through the process of making that again. What I do want to do, however, is make more sweaters. I'm kind of feeling the draw toward making some larger projects. And I have several sweater ideas that I want to work on. So hopefully I will be doing that, and getting some larger projects. And, maybe it'll take me a year or two for each one. But that's kind of what I've been feeling like I want to do. And I have sweater quantities of yarn that have been in my stash for ages. I have yarn that I picked up to make another Hittafeud. I really like my first one, and I want to finish that. I have a friend who is finally finished with hers that she started ages and ages ago. She finally picked it up and finished it, and then just seeing her working on it kind of renewed my own interest in making that one again, because that is a fun project. The construction is so when you're making it, you're thinking, how is this going to work out? So I really enjoy doing that, and I want to start that again. So I have several projects, sweater projects that I would like to start, several shawl projects that I want to do. I need to get a brioche project back on the needles. So there's a lot coming up that I'm planning on working on for knitting. For Roundtable Yarn News, I am realizing that I'm coming to the point where Houston Fiber Fest now feels like it is approaching quickly. It is less than 2 months away, and I don't have as much to dye for it as I did for DFW, because I have the stock that I have remaining from DFW, but there's still quite a bit to fill in, so I'm working on that. I actually have a little calendar where I've laid out the dyeing plans for each day, so that way I know like how much time I have and how much I can get done. So that's what I'm working on. I'm also usually, I think of things at the last minute and don't have time. Like, oh, I'd really like to have a bunch of mini skeins, and I wait until like 3 days before I need to have everything finished before I start thinking about the mini skeins, and I don't have enough time to do them. Or I would like to put together more kits with patterns, and again, I just run out of time for that. So my goal is now, when I actually still have time, to kind of think about that and to, probably not the mini skeins. I think I'm going to focus on kits and planning out kits and actually dyeing yarn specific for kits rather than taking it out from a dye lot. So that way dye lots can still have a full 4 skeins. So kind of planning out that. I'm also planning on dyeing fewer colors but more skeins of each color for both my Tristan, the sport weight, and Cornwall, the DK weight, that's Blueface Leicester yarns. So that way there will be sweater quantities of those available, because I think both of those are excellent sweater yarns and I would like people to be able to get sweater quantities. So that's kind of my goal with those. So there won't be as many colors to choose from, but like I said, more skeins of each color. So that's what I'm planning for Houston Fiber Fest. Then I am in the planning stages for the next yarn club. I actually have all of the yarn dyed, all of the samples. Everything came out the way that I wanted it to, which is nice. And I've got the story written up. I've got it divided. I have all of the colors named. What I even like created the I usually, if you haven't been in my yarn club before, I have a postcard that has a picture of the yarn on the front with the name, and then on the back is the story, so that with each shipment you get the next part of the story, so you get it kind of in installments. So I even created those. So I've got a lot of the behind the scenes stuff done. What I need to do next is sit down with the calendar and plan things out, because I want to make sure that I plan shipment dates so they don't conflict with other events that I have going on. I do like to dye for the yarn club at least a month in advance, so that way I have the yarn ready to go, so I'm not stressed to work on a deadline. But I need to, just sit down with the calendar, look at my events, and come up with a shipping schedule. And when I figure that out, then I can know like when signups will start. So signups could start as soon as next week if I feel that that's the best framework for the time, or they might wait until closer to Houston Fiber Fest. Again, I haven't sat down with the calendar. That is the plan for today or tomorrow to do that and figure that out. So look for an announcement on that soon. I will say that the story is called The Knight with Two Swords. So I will just give you that little bit of a teaser. I may keep an eye on Wally. He's coming over, making sure he's not going to go climb up tall and then jump down on me. The other big thing that I have are the colors that are inspired by our read-along for Mists of Avalon. So the first 3 of those have been released, and hopefully you got an email about those if you're on my mailing list. So the first one is this deep brown, and this is, and the pronunciation of this name, I have always pronounced it one way. And I was listening to the audiobook, and in the audiobook, Davina Porter pronounces it in a way that is not the way I've been pronouncing it. So I guess I'm going to go with her way, because now that's how I'm hearing it in my head. So Gorlois, Gorlois, that's Igraine's first husband. Gorlois is kind of how I've pronounced it in the past. So however you want to pronounce it, I'm not going to be... I'm not going to worry too much about pronunciation, but that's what this is. So this brown right here. So all of these are available for pre-order. And the idea is that the pre-order, at least these first 3, I have it set to run through May 7th. I may extend that a little bit because I've got additional colors to release as well. So I'm going to have the pre-orders. You can order it on any base that you want. And then after that, it won't be until Houston Fiber Fest before they are available just regularly. So if you don't get them through the pre-order, then you'll have to wait until after Houston Fiber Fest for them to be available again. So that's the first one, this really nice brown. Then I released Guinevere, and it's the Welsh spelling of Guinevere. Wally is just being super inquisitive today. The Welsh spelling of Guinevere. So, light does not like these light colors. This is a really, really gorgeous pale yellow. Maybe further away from the camera is actually better on this color. So a really, really pale yellow. And there's a description in the book where Lancelot and Morgaine meet Guinevere for the first time when she's lost. And the way that she's described is what made me think of that color. Then I released a third color that's blue called Priestess. So on Avalon, the priestess wear robes of blue, and they have that crescent moon on their forehead that's blue. And I think it probably is technically a darker blue than this, but in my head, this has always been the blue that the priestesses wear, and that is on their forehead. So that's why I went with this blue. And so these are the three that are currently available for pre-order on the website. And when I looked at these, first when I looked at these two, I thought, these two actually work really well together. And then I added in the blue, and I'm like, oh, the three of these are quite nice. I like these colors together. So I'm really hoping someone finds a project to do all three of these. And in fact, I decided, I like these so much that I want to do a booth sample with these three. So I actually have a short sleeve sweater that I am planning to make. Because I have so much, and I want to knit it because it looks like a lot of fun. So I want to actually make it myself. That's going to use these three. So this will be the main body, and then there's some color work, and these two will be the color work. So I'm really excited about that. But there's more. The remaining colors that I'm going to show you have not been released yet. That is my goal, either for later today or tomorrow, to get the names finalized on these. Wally's having trouble getting to the spot that he wants to get to. And now Luna's coming. Okay, so there might be some background noise with the animals. So I haven't settled 100% on names on these. I have ideas for most of them, but I do need to just make sure that that's what I want. So these will be released very soon. So there's this purple. And this reddish orange. Kind of, no, I don't want to give you names, because then if I change them, I don't want to, yeah. And then I have this golden yellow. So you can see it is darker than the other one. They would also probably go together. They're not super contrasty, so you wouldn't necessarily want to use them in color work, but they would definitely go together. And then I have this bronze color, and I think these three, just as a progression, look really, really nice together. So this bronze color, and I've got Yvain, which is kind of a golden. I've got this little ring of mine, which is kind of a golden that's different from Yvain. And this is somewhat similar, but it's definitely more on the bronzy side. So I think that there's, and I think these three colors kind of fill the gap in my color palette. So if you look at my colors, I don't have a lot in the yellow range. So I think these three are really helping to fill in a gap that is kind of needed. So I like these three together. I think they would make a really, is it What the Fade that is three, or Free Your Fade? One of the fades that Andrea Mallory has done has three colors. I think this would look really nice together in one of those. It would be a nice gradual from very light yellowy gold to a bronze. So that one, so these two will be coming out. And then this one I'm undecided about. So this is kind of a reddish brown. I don't think the reddish, not red. I don't think that's showing up on the camera maybe, but when you compare it to this, I think these might be a little too close together. So I think I might save this one for something else and not release it for the Mists of Avalon. I'm not really sure, because I think these are a little too close together. In fact, I have to be really careful that I remember which one is which. This one is definitely the one that has already been released. So I think this one's just going to get held back for a little bit. And we'll see what happens to it. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That I will have 7 colors, so 3 already released and 4 additional ones that will be in this Mists of Avalon pre-order. So I will settle on those colored names and get these last 4 up ready for pre-order. Probably extend that pre-order time from the 7th maybe to the 10th. Because I want to get these out by the end of May, so that way I don't have to get it too close to Houston Fiber Fest. And 20% of the sales of the pre-order will be going to RAIN, that organization that is a national organization for people who have been abused and assaulted, and it also has a national hotline. So 20% of all sales from pre-orders will be going to RAIN. Yeah, so just to show you all the colors together, there are the Mists of Avalon inspired colors. So again, the first 3 are already on the website, and the other 4 will be there in the next couple of days. And other Roundtable Yarn stuff, I think that I have, so the yarn shops in the DFW area have gotten together to continue on with the yarn crawl, though they moved it to September. And I am pretty sure that I have a trunk show set up for one of the Saturdays. I just want to absolutely confirm that. We haven't, we've agreed to do it, but we haven't discussed specific details, and I want to talk a little bit more about specifics before I announce that, but hopefully I have a trunk show set up for that. And then speaking of trunk shows, I do have a trunk show in the shop in San Antonio in Skein Yarns in July. So Houston Fiber Fest and the trunk show in July. And then in September, hopefully the trunk show during the yarn crawl, and then the Mississippi Fiber Fest, Fiber Fun in the Sip. And then in November is East Texas Fiber Fest. So really I'm just kind of running from here till then, and have just every month or every other month something to look for. I guess it's more or less every other month. The trunk shows kind of fill in some of those gaps. So lots of stuff that I'm doing on Roundtable Yarns. The website is pretty stocked, and I've been adding new stuff as I diet for Houston. I held stuff back for DFW and didn't list it on the website, and for Houston I am listing it on the website, just trying to kind of see what works best. So you might want to check back on the website to see what things have been added. But again, you could always custom order something. If there's a color on a base that you want that I don't currently have in stock, or I don't have enough skeins of it in stock, feel free to custom order. If you only need 1 skein, that is fine. I have an easy setup to dye 1 skein. It is really easy for me to squeeze that in to my my dyeing. I know some people said, "Oh, I don't want you to go through the trouble of dyeing 1 skein." It's really not any trouble. It's very easy to dye 1 skein. So don't hesitate if you need that. And I think that's probably a good update for Roundtable Yarns. I have something really exciting to share with you guys. So some of you may already be aware, some of you this might be news to you. There is a game that has been in development called Knitting the Card Game. The person who really kind of designed the game, put it all together, is named Lacey, and she ran a Kickstarter for the game. And the Kickstarter did really, really well. She not only met the original goal, but several stretch goals, and raised quite a bit of money to be able to produce the game. And I had heard about the Kickstarter, and I pledged the Kickstarter so that I will get a copy of the game when it is released. And I started following the game on Instagram, which goes by the handle Knitting the Card Game, so it's really easy to find. And I noticed one of her posts, she mentioned that she was looking for podcasters and bloggers who might be interested in getting a demo version of the game for a small amount of time, and so they could play it and some of it play test and review it. So I contacted her, said, yeah, I would be really happy to do that. And I got the game last week. I'm recording this segment on Monday. I usually record the podcast on Thursday, but I need to send the game back, so I wanted to record this while I still had the game in hand. So I got it not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And on Monday evening, I played it with my knitting group. It is a 2 to 4 player game. So there were 3 of us that played it that night. And then later in the week, I met a friend for lunch, and we played the 2-player version of the game. Because sometimes gameplay on games can be very different with 2 players. I'm happy to say the game played really well, even with just 2 players. And then on Sunday at that knitting group, I took the game and 4 of us played. So I've gotten to experience playing with 2 players, 3 players, and 4 players. So I feel like I've gotten a nice rounded experience with the game. So I want to share the game with you, share a little bit about how it's played, and share my review, which I'm just going to say is a glowing positive review. This is a super fun game. Okay, so here's Knitting the Card Game. So these are the rules. She is going back over the rules and revising some of them. There were some comments some questions that we had when we were playing the game that I asked her and said probably needed to be clarified a little bit. So it's kind of fun to be able to provide some feedback that is actually going to be useful in developing the final version of the game. So the game is basically, if you are familiar with the type of game like Ticket to Ride, then this is a similar gameplay. If you're not familiar with Ticket to Ride, then I'll be explaining it, and hopefully it will make sense. But if you are familiar with a game like that, then you'll probably pick up on this game really quickly. So it comes with a game board, and the demo version is paper, but the actual game will have a cardboard version of the game board. So this is the yarn shop, which will have cards that are face up, and then a deck of cards in the middle that are face down. And then, so those are yarn cards, which I'll show you in a minute. They're really, really cool. There are pattern cards, and there are these cards called community cards. So this is what goes down on the table. Love the little cat down here. This is what goes down on the table as you are playing. So basically, let me show you the type of the cards, and then I'll explain the basics of the game. So there are a bunch of yarn cards. So I'll show you. There's a huge stack of yarn cards. I love the design on the back of the cards. So these are our yarn store yarn cards, and each card has a picture of yarn on it. And the really, really cool thing about this game is that this is all real yarn. So mostly it is indie dyers. This one is, the colorway is Jupiter by Nano Stitch Lab. So in the very bottom corner, hopefully you can see that, in the white lettering down there, so you probably can't read it on the camera. But in the very bottom corner of each card, it gives you the colorway and the dyer's name. So that way, if you're playing the game and you see a yarn that you really like, you can say, ooh, what is that? And you won't have to wonder. You'll actually find out. Hang on, gotta get Wally. My usual. Okay. So that is really, really cool and fun. And I will say the first couple of times you play the game, it might take a little bit longer, not just because you're learning the game, but because you're looking at every single card, because it's just all so pretty. I mean, look at this. Just super, super pretty yarn cards. And there are some dyers in here I'm familiar with. There's Mustache, there's Suburban Stitcher, and some other names you might be familiar with, and a lot of names that I've never heard of. So it was kind of fun to get to see some new yarn dyers that I'm not really familiar with. Similarly, there are pattern cards, and each pattern card has a pattern. And again, it is a real pattern, and it gives you the name of the pattern and the designer. So once again, if you see a pattern that you're going through and think, oh wow, I'd like to make that, you can have the information right there. And again, that happened while we were playing the game. There was one card where the first night, one of the players actually took a picture of the card because she wanted to make that pattern for sure. So she wanted to remember the information. It was this scarf right here, which is Slideways by the Sogmatician. So that is a lot of fun to see, again, just the realness in the game. So that just adds kind of an extra element to it. So basically the idea is that as you are playing, you have these pattern cards in your hand, and each pattern card gives you information. This is the number of points that the card is worth, and then this is the yarn that is needed to cast on the project. So all the yarns have a, of course I picked white, which the camera does not want to. So this one is purple. So each one is color coded and has a different color. So let me get, this is a good example of a pattern. So this pattern is one that actually needs quite a few colors. So you need to actually collect a red, orange, yellow, green, and purple yarn cards. So you need 5 yarn cards in order to cast on this project. And then there are other patterns that might only need a little bit of yarn, like this one needs 2 oranges. And there's some that need a lot, so like this one needs a whole bunch of purple and green. So basically you have, you start with 3 pattern cards, and you can go shopping for more patterns as the game progresses. And your goal is to try to cast on as many of these projects as you can. So during gameplay, you are collecting yarn cards. So each yarn card, as I showed you, has a particular color, and there are quite a few colors, so that there's, both a lot to choose from and a lot sometimes that you have to collect in order to cast on your projects. And then there's also the rainbow yarn, which has a dual function. Some patterns will actually call specifically for this rainbow yarn, and other times this can be a wild card. You can substitute it to be any color. So it is a dual function card. And as such, it's a little more powerful of a card. And I'm not going to explain every single detail of gameplay. I just want to give you some of the overall ideas. So as you are working on your patterns, so let's say, so here we've got this one, it has 3 green. So in my hand, I have finally collected my 3 green yarn cards, and I am ready to cast this on. So you have a set of 4 empty needles. These are your cast on cards. So you have a set of 4 of these. And what you do is you put down the pattern, your 3 green yarns, for this pattern in particular, and then you turn this card over and it gives you the cast on information. So what you do is you basically put the yarn underneath, and then you put the pattern card on top where it just says cast on. And of course I picked the yellow that's probably washing out the most on the screen. There's a black, so let me get that one as the example. So the cast on card, and you've got your pattern right there. And at the beginning of each turn, you progress by 1 week. So you basically, you start your turn by knitting, and you knit 1 week of your project. And at the bottom of the card, it will tell you how many weeks the pattern is going to actually take. So this one will take 6 weeks to complete. So basically 6 turns. Technically 7, because you've got the first turn is casting on, and then you've got to go at the beginning of each turn, progress down the card until you get to 6 weeks. And the turn that you progress where it's 6 weeks, now you have finished this project, you bind off, and you put it, where did I put it? You put it on your blocking mat. So each player has this little blocking mat, and these also will be cardboard. Each player has a blocking mat, and so you put it in front of you, and when you finish a project, you place it on your blocking mat. And now these points, the point value up here, are your points. And the game continues until one player reaches a total of 100 points on their blocking mat, and that triggers the end of the game. That does not mean that player wins, it just triggers the end of the game. And then you count up all the points on your blocking mat. You count up anything that's cast on that's not finished, just doesn't count, either for or against you. But if you have any pattern cards still in your hand that you have not cast on, you have to subtract those points. So the best thing to do, especially toward the end of the game, is to make sure you've at least cast on everything out of your hand, so that way they don't count against you. But there are also one more element to add to the game, and that is the community card deck. So with the community cards, you can buy these over the course of the game. They cost 5 yarn cards, so you basically discard 5 yarn cards that you decide you don't need for your projects. And there are a variety of things that happen in these community cards. Some of them are things that affect the gameplay. So this one says, treat yourself to new stitch markers, finish a whip 2 weeks sooner. So advance 1 whip by 2 weeks. So instead of the 1 week at the beginning of your turn, you get to do 2. Or actually, whenever you play this card, you get to advance it by 2 weeks. So that's a really powerful card that can help you get through a project pretty quickly. There are ones that you can do to affect an opponent's gameplay. So this is one that says, misplace a project bag? Uh-oh, do not advance progress for 2 weeks. Place on an opponent's whip. And I actually use this in one of the games against somebody. So you can place this on an opponent and cause them to basically slow down the progress. And there are various types of cards like that. And then there are other cards that allow you to gain extra points. So there are some cards like this that have little point value up there, and you hold those in your hand and you keep them secret until the end of the game. So people don't know how many points you might have in your hand. So they have that, and there are also these little starter projects that you don't ever cast on because it says 0 weeks. They're just quick and easy, so you automatically get the points. But again, you don't put them down on your blocking mat. You keep them in your hand. That way you've got kind of this reserve of secret points that might affect the results at the end of the game. So like I said, the first person to get to 100 points triggers the end of the game. Everyone else gets 1 more turn, and then the points get tallied up, and the winner is determined. In the case of a tie, basically whatever number of yarn cards you still have in your hand at the end of the game, the people who tie, whoever has the most yarn cards remaining, wins. Or if there's still a tie after that, say they have the same number of yarn cards, then we go to real life. And if you have, whichever person has the biggest stash in real life wins. So that's kind of a benefit for those of us who have a sizable stash. It can actually help you win this game. And I will say that we did have to resort to that in one of our games. I'll talk about gameplay in just a minute. But I think that's the basics. There are bonus points if you are, so let's say in real life you are actually knitting this hat. If you are knitting it while you are playing the game and this is an FO that you make, then you can get bonus points. The same with yarn. If you're actually using the yarn while you're playing the game, you have to be actively knitting while you're playing the game, and you finish a project using that yarn, then you can get bonus points. So it kind of also encourages maybe you to use some of these patterns and yarns. So like I said at the beginning, this is a fun game. Everyone that played it really enjoyed it, and I think pretty much everyone who played it has decided to go ahead and pre-order a copy because they want it so much. I have people in my knitting groups who basically have kind of begged me not to send it back. They want me to keep it longer because, like I said, this is the demo version and I do need to send it back so another podcaster or blogger can get a chance to play. And they don't want me to send it back. I don't want to send it back because I want to continue playing. So I think that in itself, just the fact that people want to continue playing and want to get a copy for themselves is kind of the highest positive review that you could probably get because that really shows how enjoyable the game is. So a couple of notes about gameplay. It does take a little while to, especially if you're not familiar with this type of game, just to kind of get into the rhythm of the game, try to get strategy, figuring out, do I want to go for patterns? Do I want to go for yarn? Do I want to go for community cards? What's the strategy? And I think that's something that, just as we continue to play and develop our strategies and figure out what might work best. So, like I said, I played it multiple times. The first time was a 3-player game. And it's about 45 minutes to an hour to play a game. I think it took us a little over that because it was the very first time we were figuring out the rules and we were stopping and looking at all the pictures. But overall, it was a lot of fun. We ended that game in a 3-way tie. We all ended up with the same number of points. So we had to go to the yarn cards, and the other 2 players, not me, the other 2 players ended up with a tie as far as the number of yarn cards they had in their hands. And so they actually had to go to Real Life Stash and kind of think about who might have the biggest stash in real life and determine the winner that way. So it was fun that we got to actually use that rule even in the very first game. And we finished the game. And we kind of looked at each other, and this is our knitting group, and we weren't knitting while we were playing the game because we were trying to figure things out, and so we weren't actually doing any knitting. So here we are at our knitting group, our weekly group, where we really enjoy sitting and knitting, and all we wanted to do was play again. And so we did. Instead of knitting that night, we played a second round of the game. And so that was a lot of fun. The person who won the first round also won the second round. Congrats, Alyssa. And so, like I said, it was so much fun that we wanted to play again, and we chose playing that evening over knitting. So that's probably a big compliment too. Then, like I said later in the week, I met with another friend, and we played the 2-player version of the game because I wanted to see, does the game still work as well with 2 players? And it did. It was really enjoyable. There's, slight strategy differences, since you are just having one opponent. But overall, the gameplay itself, ran smoothly, with a 2-player game, and there weren't any, special rules that you had to use. There are some games where the 2-player version, you have to have a special set of rules. You didn't have to do that. Everything worked really well, even with the 2 players. So that was a lot of fun. And I think that she went and pre-ordered the game, or she hasn't yet. I know she's going to. And then on Sunday, I brought it to my knitting group, and we played 4 players. So I played one of the people who had played it before, Alyssa, the one who won, played again, and then 2 new people played, and we played the 4-player version. And again, we all had a lot of fun. And they picked up on the gameplay pretty quickly, and it ran pretty smoothly. We had more people than were playing, so people who were watching the game as well. And again, everyone was interested and wanted to pre-order the game, so that way they could have their own copies, and asked me if I could keep it for another week so I could bring it back the next Sunday. So again, good compliments, people being eager to play. Like I said, I don't want to send it back. I want to keep it because I really did enjoy it and I want to play it. But I will send it back, so because I promised, but also so other podcasters and bloggers can get a chance to play and review. And I will eagerly be awaiting my own version. So I pledged it during the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is over, but Lacey is accepting pre-orders right now, and I will link to that in the show notes. So pre-orders, according to, I think this was in an email that she sent me. I don't know that this is on the game site, but I think she's going to run pre-orders through the end of June or about thereabouts. And I'm not sure of the release date for the game. I don't know if she has a specific date set aside yet. As I know, there are things, there are some new pattern cards that she's put together. The instructions need to be overhauled. I suggested that she create turn order cards for each player so you can see like what are the different steps of the turn. And she'd already had those in development, and she sent me a PDF of those. So I got to see what that looks like, which I think will be really helpful so you remember like what to do during your turn. So I don't have a specific release date, but if you want to pre-order it, go to the link in the show notes. The game is going to retail for $34.99, but if you pre-order it, you can get it for $30. So you do get a discount if you pre-order the game. So I highly recommend it. I'm kind of picturing, because there are going to be multiple people in my local circle that have this game, I'm picturing a tournament where we have like 4 groups of 4 players, like 16 people, where we have a tournament going, and after each of those games finish, the top like 2 people from each game will get together and play. So then there'll be 8 people left, and so 2 versions of the games will be going. And then the top 2 people in those 2 games will play in the finals and have those 4 people play. So I'm already picturing like a tournament of this. I think that would be a lot of fun. So I'm excited about this. A little bummed that I have to send it back and have to wait now, but it'll be worth the wait because it is a really fun game. It is very well designed. Even just the kind of demo version, very professional printing. There is one little thing where there are dotted line skeins, which can be your choice of color, and there's also white, and the line on the white almost looks a little dotted, so it was a little difficult to see, and Lacey is aware of that, and she's going to do something for the actual printing that will make those a little easier to determine. But it is really well put together, well designed. The graphics are fun. I mean, if you look at the little instructions here, the colors are a lot of fun. There's images. She's got examples of gameplay here. So you can see what the cards look like on the board. And yeah, I'm just really excited by this. I am so glad that someone came up with this idea and developed it, and so glad that people supported it through Kickstarter, so that way it can go into development. So again, go to the show notes and click the link on pre-order. Go ahead and pre-order your copy. I don't think you're going to be unhappy. If nothing else, just looking at all the yarn and pattern cards and seeing all the really wonderful prettiness that is on there. So that is my review. Highest rating that I could give it, out of 10 out of 10, 5 stars out of 5, whatever rating system, I would give it the very top grade. So just a quick reminder on the knit along for this quarter. Any shawl that makes use of mini skeins, it does not have to be made entirely out of minis or yarn scraps. It does not have to be made out of entirely of minis or yarn scraps. You can use a full-size skein along with it. My Buccaneer shawl that I'm making does exactly that. And a lot of you guys have projects going, so it's exciting to see that and to see your plans. So make sure you are posting over in the chat thread for the knit along. And I think, I can't get to this. Yeah, my chair is keeping me from opening that. I'm pretty sure that's where I put the little mini skein set from 100 Ravens with the kind of the grays and purples. That is the prize for this quarter's knit along. So once you finish your project, make sure you post in the FO thread so that way you can be entered for the prize. This quarter runs through the end of June. So I'm looking forward to seeing your projects for that. And that's it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope that you, that my talk about Hamilton, if you are not If you've never really listened to Hamilton, I hope it kind of excites you and gets you thinking about it, or at least going to see it. If you've not had a chance to see it, I hope you do, because like I said, it's truly a phenomenal experience. Enter the lottery to try to get tickets for $10. You can get 1 or 2 tickets. It's not a big group ticket thing. So however you are able to see it, I hope you are. I hope you will check out Knitting the Card Game. It is available for pre-order. I will link to that in the show notes. It is so much fun. I really did not want to return my copy. Oh, it's so much fun. I'm looking forward to getting it officially, the version that is mine, and being able to play with friends. So I hope you will check that out. And then I hope you will come over to the Ravelry group and the discussion thread for this episode, and feel free to chat with me, with one another. You can also post comments here on YouTube. I really, really appreciate you guys. Love the conversation and community. That is my favorite part. And until next time, happy knitting.